everybody hear me okay? Is this all right? Okay, I'll try not to scream. I speak quickly, so you're going to have to listen. We have to catch up. We have a lot to cover. I just want to say first, before I begin, that I wrote AWAI's travel writer course, but in fact, my bread and butter these days, and for some time now, has been copywriting. I write a lot of copy that's related to travel and financial products as well, and some fundraising stuff. So I've sort of bridged that gap between editorial writing and copywriting. You're all here to learn about copywriting, and that indeed is where the money is. But the secrets of good writing apply to all kinds of writing. I'm not going to give grammar tips. In fact, I think I have one grammatical term in this whole presentation. And you don't even have to know what it is, because I'm going to teach you all about it. But these are sort of 7 rules that you should know and you should follow. And when you do, your copy is it's going to be easier to read, it's going to be more effective, and it's going to be more profitable. Right? So if you do nothing else, make sure that your copy follows these 7 rules. Key number 1, don't waste your verbs. Replace to be with verbs that do more for your copy. The verb to be, that's is, am, were, was, is weak. The girl was at her desk. There's nothing grammatically wrong with that sentence. However, the girl slouched at her desk gives you an image, gives you more information. The girl cried at her desk. Again, you have a completely different image, a different piece of information. Your sentence is stronger. It's better. And the key is in the verb. It's the most powerful part of your sentence. The girl slept at her desk. Again, you can see immediately why just making that kind of change is going to completely revolutionize the way your copy reads. Choose verbs that describe an action or offer a visual image. The man went down the hall. What else could we say? Ran down the hall. Skipped. Slouched. I don't know what I put here. The man lumbered down the hall, limped down the hall, tottered down the hall. I mean, you can see why this will make a huge change in your language. And I encourage you quite literally to do a search for the verb to be when you're done writing your copy and go through every single sentence and see if you can't make it better just by fixing the verb. It will really change the way your copy reads. It will make it more professional very quickly. Easy fix. Here's some examples. Strong verbs help you paint engaging pictures. This is from a lift note signed by Democratic Representative Carolyn McCarthy in a letter that was mailed by Emily's List. It says, "Then I saw lining up behind me more than 24 other Democratic women representatives. One after another, they defied the loudly booing Republicans to announce their support for my amendment and their determination to protect America's families from guns in the hands of criminals, children, and the mentally disturbed." I mean, this could easily have read, "We stood in line." You know, but instead, we've got much more active, engaging verbs that makes a difference. It's engaging. Here's another example. It's a message of ugly devastation, of eroded topsoil blowing in huge clouds over the land, of silt-filled rivers choked and flood-prone with earth from along their banks, of towns and cities with little shade and few clouds to shield them from constant blazing sun. This is from a National Arbor Day Foundation mailing. Again, good verbs. If you have good verbs, it means that you don't need lots of adjectives. If you have fewer adjectives, your sentences are shorter. Your writing is efficient, all right? And that's what you want. You want your writing to be as efficient and quick and move your reader forward. And the #1 key to doing that is using good verbs. Here's one I wrote for a financial product. It was for the Sovereign Society. It was actually for a Hong Kong, China investment tour. And I included this just because, in fact, I'm writing about investments, which seems like it might be dry, but I'm using good verbs. The growth of China's, I'm not going to read the whole thing. The growth of China's economy, now barreling forward at 9.5% annual, has no equal in modern history. Since 1980, it has grown faster for longer than any other country ever. Foreign investors poured a whopping $64 billion into China last year, and it is today the workshop of the world. The Chinese sew more clothes and stitch more shoes and assemble more toys than any other nation. They build more TVs, DVD players, and cell phones than anybody else, too. Right now, the country ranks as the 3rd largest. Anyway, my point is, you can talk about investments and use active verbs, right? And you should. 125 privileged members were there at the conference. What might be a better way to say that? Instead of were, attended. You could just say attended. Number 2, sales for the caramel. Oh, by the way, I should say up front, all of these examples are from direct mail packages, either packages that mailed or packages that people like you have written in years past and sent to AWAI. And I grabbed examples. So you should pay attention to everything, or your stuff might end up in one of my presentations. Sales for the Carmel Group, I put skyrocketed to nearly $1.5 billion. Number 3, John is an internationally respected voice in the financial world, specializing in economics in the offshore investment field. Anyone? Excels, he excels. I don't know. I just did it this way. I just rearranged the sentence. John, an internationally respected voice in the financial world, John specializes in economics and offshore investing. But again, another verb, or rearrange it. Point is, get rid of your to be's, and also to have. To have is another verb that's pretty weak. You're not getting a lot of action out of your to have. So anytime, to be is the worst offender. To have is the second offender. These recordings are here for you whenever you want, with 19 hours of conference recorded for you to hear. Available, we could say that these are available. I wrote, these recordings offer 19 full hours of insight and information recorded at the conference, available for you to listen to at your leisure from the comfort of your whatever. You get the idea. I'm not going to belabor the point. Key number 2, write to express rather than to impress. People have a habit of sitting down, and they're getting ready to sit down and write, and it's like they powder their wigs and get all prepared and sit here, and this is a very intimidating and sort of formal setting, and they begin to write very formally. This is not good. You want to write the way you speak, and in no other kind of writing is it more important than it is in copywriting. You should prefer shorter words. I want to say here, too, I'm not suggesting that you dumb down your language in any way. I'm suggesting that you read everything that you write out loud. And in some ways, when you're getting started, read it out loud to your spouse, or read it out loud to a copy buddy that you've met here on the phone. I mean, it sounds extreme, but I read everything out loud. My husband and I can't share an office because I talk to myself when I write, and it drives him absolutely batty. We actually have offices on different floors now because it drove him insane. So prefer shorter words. Instead of components, say parts. Instead of utilize, I hate utilize, say use. Instead of facilitate, say ease. Just use shorter words. Prefer specific words as well. Instead of saying car, tell me that it's a 2005 BMW Z8. Instead of many, tell me that there are 6. Instead of hot, tell me that it's 94 degrees. That's going to make a difference in your writing. Again, it's making it more concrete. It's making it more action-oriented, and you're creating visual pictures for people. That's important. Prefer more common words as well. Don't say dwelling if you can say home or house. Don't say modicum when you can just say some. Don't say subterranean when what you mean to say is underground. I mean, just use words that you would use in conversation. I think it was in Nevada, a community college. One of the Maricopa Community Colleges, Gateway, is a fully accredited and comprehensive public institution of higher education that continuously responds to the ever-changing workplace needs with innovation, state-of-the-art technology, and a pro-career orientation. Do you want to go to school there? Was it Phoenix? Was it Phoenix? Okay. I changed it. One of the Maricopa Community Colleges, Gateway, is a fully accredited public institution. We offer innovative programs, state-of-the-art technology, and a pro-career orientation. And that means our students are always prepared to meet the ever-changing needs of the workplace. I didn't change that content at all. And I used a lot of their same words, but I just made it more spoken-like, you know? I mean, it sounds the way you'd say it to somebody. That's what you want. Key number 2. Learn about insurance that is applicable around the world. That can be used around the world, that would be more, or available. I wrote, learn about insurance you can count on anywhere around the world, or learn about insurance available worldwide. Learn insurance principles, that could be. That could be. Learn insurance principles, depending on who your audience is. We don't really know. I just took the sentence out of context, but you guys get the idea. Now available to trade and tech. This is from an Economist mailing, which is they're usually pretty good, but this thing was horrible. Now available to trade and technical publishers. Maximize your capabilities to provide high-value information to your subscribers and prospects. I mean, I almost thought this can't even. Did they send the wrong thing? Someone intern put in the wrong version. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up because I'm giving you the answers. Does someone have a better?
How to sell more of your valuable information.
learn how to sell more of your valuable information? Or
Now, as a technical or as a trade or technical publisher, you can easily bring high-value information to your...
Right, you can easily bring high-value information to your... He's got the keys using you. We're going to talk about that in a moment. If you're a publisher of trade or technical materials, this product will help you get high-value information to your subscribers and prospects. Again, it's just making it clear the way you'd say it. The cassettes offer you your own personal tutor who engages you in interactive learning through spoken question and answer techniques. I mean, that isn't what you'd say. These are learning cassettes, language cassettes. What would you say? The question and answer format makes these tapes interactive. You'll feel like you have your own personal tutor. I mean, just, again, simplify, essentially. I told you not to do this. We'll just skip number 4. I put it in there for effect. Visualization and computer modeling can sharpen the management team's collective insight into the consequences of change. This is just such business writing, sort of, it's just, it's awful. Visualization and computer modeling can help a management team understand the consequences of change, is what I put, really. You guys understand this stuff. Key number 3. And I really did start this way. When I wrote down key number 3, I wrote, never use any more words than you absolutely need to. And then I edited it, and then I realized, you know what, you could just use fewer words. That really was my process as I wrote key number 3. I was not making that up. So, use fewer words. This sentence is too long. At NCS, not only will you be crossing the frontier to your future by engaging in education and training designed to unlock your potential and prepare you to confidently and competently enter the competitive professional world, but you will also be crossing a new frontier in Nevada higher education. Well, aren't we excited? If we can breathe at the end of the brochure. So I trimmed it and just tightened it up. At NSC, you'll cross the frontier to your future. You'll gain education and training designed to unlock your potential. And you'll come away confident and competent, well prepared to enter a competitive professional world. Again, this is not, let me just tell you, if you're looking for clients, yeah. Community colleges in the Nevada area seem to need help. Note to self. Yeah. As a firm, number 1, as a firm, our growth and development have been impressive. Anybody want to take? As a firm, right, could get rid of as a firm altogether. That would work. Our growth and development have been impressive. I said our firm's growth and development have been impressive, or we've shown impressive growth and development over the past 12 months, and then you might follow it up with more details or something like that. Again, you can see that from the pattern, I think, that it's not just, one test is, does it sound like it's spoken? And a second test is, are you saying we and you and you're just speaking, At FCG, we have an expert understanding of that technology, which combined with our deep domain knowledge of healthcare enables us to work with our clients to deliver real improvements in the management of healthcare processes through health outcomes. Oh my God. Of course, I'm looking for examples, and I'm thrilled. I find this, and I'm like, this is terrible, This is great. Yeah. Well, and this stuff gets printed. Our expert understanding of technology and healthcare combined means we keep our clients healthier. I mean, really, that's what they're saying, right? And when you think about it, really that bottom, the improved sentence, is easier to write. I mean, I actually think you'd have to go out of your way to make it as complicated as the number 2 really is. So they get paid by the word. Vitamin Women would like, this is a website, Vitamin Women would like to help by bringing you the very best lab-assessed vitamins that are pharmaceutically graded and at a most realistic discounted price. Anybody? I think that's what I put. Brings you the very best lab-assessed and pharmaceutical-grade vitamins at a discount. Lab-assessed. I don't know enough about that industry when I fixed it. Maybe you don't need lab-assessed. Maybe you do. I don't know. But as a copywriter, you would know the answer to that before you included it in there. You will learn how to capture and use the knowledge of teams in order to test the feasibility of proposed change and develop consensus. God. Learn to use teams to test the feasibility of a change and develop consensus. I mean, if nothing else. Yeah?
How about learn to use teams to see if the changes will work?
Learn to use teams to see if the changes will work. That's better. That's better than mine. That's good. Key number 4. Express one idea in one sentence. And again, I'm not suggesting that you cannot use compound sentences in your copy. You most certainly can. But what happens is when you try to cram too much into a sentence, it gets confusing. And it's too long to read. You have to breathe in the middle of the sentence. Bad sign. Someone has to breathe in the middle of your sentence. In copy, particularly this kind of copywriting, the shorter the sentence, the better. And one way to keep them short is to put one idea in one sentence. Let's look at some examples. This has too many ideas. And this is from a spec package from somebody, a spec promo. As you and I approach, or if we're honest, enter middle age, we face a common worry. Have you done enough in your youth to keep healthy, disease-free, and virile? You hope so, but even then, can you ever be sure, especially when these are things you can't control that may be very bad for you? Run as fast as you can from this copy. So I think there are at least 4 ideas in this sentence. And it's not that the ideas are necessarily bad. It's just that they are all crammed into one sentence that's much too long and, as a result, unreadable. And so what does your prospect do? Stops reading, right? Your goal is essentially to lead them by the hand from one sentence to the next. And this stops them dead in the tracks. I kept all the same ideas. I just shortened up. You can divide these things up. As we enter middle age, we face a common worry. Have we done enough in our youth to keep healthy, disease-free, and virile? We hope so, but it's impossible to be sure. After all, environmental factors we can't control could contribute to our ill health. That could be improved further, but all I did was just divide it up. And it's already easier to read. Not necessarily brilliant copy, but easier to read. Let's look at an exercise number 4. And these are great. And it's bad. I sort of get gleeful when people now, like Bob Bly and Will Newman, and they send me bad copy. So we have this little thing where everyone sends me bad. Oh, Jen, there's this horrible package. I'm sending it to you. So some of these are great. They're really bad. Read number 1. We are also able to offer a number of partnering arrangements ranging from the provision of management and technology advice and support through working together on ideas and initiatives or projects to joint venture agreements. What? I literally had to, it will take you a little bit to fix that because it's basically impossible to figure out what they're saying. Does someone have a fix for this? Yeah. He figured bullets. Good instinct. We offer a number of partnering arrangements which include bullet, bullet, bullet. That's exactly what I did. We offer various partnership formulas. We can provide management and technology advice, work together with you to develop ideas, initiatives, and projects, create a joint venture arrangement. And you could even say create a joint venture and take off the arrangement. You don't really even need arrangement. I realized this morning when I was looking at my slides. Number 2. Did anyone do number 2, our villas and cottages? Yeah?
I kind of kept the same verbiage, but I just reversed it so that all the ideas were in the proper area.
So you kept the same verbiage but rearranged the ideas.
Yeah, so I said with our facilities and amenities included, our villas, cottages are individually owned.
Okay, with all the amenities included, our villages and cottages are individually owned.
Yeah, some are perfect secluded hideaways.
Right, some are perfect secluded hideaways, and then you're going to have a list of the...
Well, I was thinking that if you group the hideaways on the hilltops and the oceans and the beach together...
Okay, right. That's good. Hideaways on beach, hilltop, oceans, beach together, and then group the others together. I think that's how I did it, too. Let's see. I said our villas and cottages are unique and individually owned, located throughout the island. Some offer perfect seclusion. Others sit near resorts and include use of the facilities and amenities. You'll find hilltop, ocean view homes and beachfront retreats, golf course villas, and even properties with tennis courts. We essentially did the same thing. Right? That's another, I'm going to touch on this point here because you brought it up. You rearranged the way the information was because it didn't make any sense. It was out of order. And we're going to talk about that when we get to key number 7. But that's something to think about, too. I've had folks who've taken this session before come up to me at other programs later on and say, that key that you talk about, where to put information, that really makes all the difference. If I don't know why something's not working, it's usually because the information's in the wrong place. So in a few minutes, we'll get to talking further about that, but that's an important point. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So something I did that you didn't do, because I thought the statement, even properties with tennis courts, or no, where is it? Sorry. With their facilities and amenities included, I thought that applied to all of
well, and it may have. I think my point was simply clean it up. And you'd have to check, this is the problem. You've just identified the problem with copy that is convoluted because you're not sure what it means. I mean, and again, you want your writing to be as forward-moving, as clear as it can be. And when you've got too many ideas in one sentence and you're trying to cram too much in there, you can't tell what the meaning is, and that's another reason to stop reading. So that's a good point. Number 3, the human brain absorbs information most effectively in 30-minute increments. Language reaches the brain most quickly through hearing. Dr. Lang also has a unique approach to teaching vocabulary. And that's in one sentence because I don't know. Right, the period key wasn't working on the typewriter. I don't know. Language reaches the brain most quickly through hearing, and the human brain absorbs information most effectively in 30-minute increments. Understanding those facts, Dr. Lang created a unique and highly effective approach to teaching vocabulary. I mean, I added stuff, but you guys get the point. I think there's one more. Oh, this is my favorite. Since I have been going to Bob's restaurant, I can't seem to count the number of numerous dishes I seem to have indulged myself in, and it sure tastes excellent. Okay. Yeah.
I'm fairly aggressive with the chainsaw.
Yeah, that's fine.
I said Bob's restaurant serves so many tasty dishes, I can't remember how many I've tried.
Bob's restaurant serves so many tasty dishes, I can't remember how many I've tried. That works. The food at Bob's restaurant is excellent. I can't count the number of superior meals I've enjoyed there. I mean, yeah, I had to include that. These are my favorites. Say what you mean. Sometimes when you get really close to copy, it's perfectly clear to you, but it's not necessarily perfectly clear to your reader, and that's really why it's important to have somebody else read your stuff. Because sometimes it's not that you don't understand your material, it's not that your copy isn't well written, but it's that you've either left something in that made sense to you, or what you think it makes sense, but it doesn't really, or you're reading it without a word in it, that you're reading it, it's clear to you because you think that word is in there, and you typed it, and you're sure it is, and someone else reads it and says, it doesn't really make any sense. Let's look at some examples. Essentially, figure out what you really mean to say, and then say it. This came in from a travel writer course, just a spec assignment to sell the travel writer course. As the world gets smaller, thousands of retirees with income and itch are restless to see the world. I mean, you know what the guy meant, right? But I mean, this is what they turned in with their spec assignment. And, you know, you got to get by me with the spec assignment. So this didn't get mailed. What does this writer really mean to say? It's easier than ever to see the world. Each year, millions of baby boomers retire, many with an itch to travel and the income to do it. There wasn't anything wrong with itch. It was just in the wrong place. Right? So you just want to sort of literally read your stuff out loud. Give it to someone else to read. This is taken from a frame shop. I mean, this practically threatens the reader. For all your occasions, you'd better have a game plan on where to take your framing needs. Better have one. What does he really mean to say? I said, whatever the occasion, a graduation, a wedding, a birthday, will make your photos truly memorable with professional framing at discount prices. Let's look at a few. We can look at a few of these, and we can look at these together. They're so funny, some of them, that I had to put them in. This is a good one. Arrangements can take various forms, and we have no preconceived ideas. Well, we're looking to hire you because you have no preconceived ideas. Oh, good. That's a good advertisement for your services. We can make arrangements to suit your needs. Really, that's what this person meant to say. The moment you walk yourself into the serenity of this restaurant, there is this feeling of laxity that just envelops you. Really? Put that on my to-visit list. Yeah. Somebody want to take a stab at this? How could you improve this sentence? Hold on, wait. Who's talking? There was a woman. Okay, in the way back. Okay.
This restaurant has a calm and relaxed atmosphere.
This restaurant has a calm and relaxed atmosphere. Okay, that's essentially what they intended, I think. The moment you walk into this restaurant, a feeling of serenity envelops you. Even that would work. Presumably it's serene. I have a client. This is from one of my clients, and they sort of sell information about cars online. In the auto industry, a major aspect of the buying services niche is turning the salesperson into a customer service agent. Therefore, you can expect professional treatment as compared to being hassled to buy. This guy that I worked with on these projects, he actually understood. He had a really good idea about who his customer was, and he had a good idea of what arguments he needed in his copy to sell him. He had a really good instinct about sales, but he could not express himself in writing. He could express himself extremely well and articulately on the phone, and so he would send me copy, and sometimes I would look at it and I would just say, I literally have no idea what he means, but he's a smart guy, and I know he knows his customer, and I know he is probably right on with what needs to be said at this point in the copy, but I have no idea what this says. And I would call him and I'd say, okay, go to paragraph 4. What? And he would tell me, well, I was just saying that blah, 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 and I would type what he said to me. And that would be how we would fix the copy. Because he had a good sense, and I think that you should keep in mind, too, that there is, if you are a good copywriter and you can pair up with somebody who, a client who, there are clients out there who you could write copy for them from scratch, but there are people out there who will write their own copy and realize that this isn't going to work, but they don't know where to go. Well, you can be a resource for them. You can help them fix that copy. And I say this simply to say that one way to do that is to talk to them as you're going through the copy, because sometimes these folks, they're entrepreneurial, they're smart, they know what they're doing, they know their audience. They just can't write. But if you can get what they say onto paper, they'll love you and keep hiring you and pay you. So just keep that in mind. I think anytime having a conversation with your client about the product and typing at breakneck speed or recording the conversation is a really smart thing to do. You can use words from them. You can literally pick entire sentences that they said because they're going to say it. They're intimately familiar with their product, and they love their product, and they're enthusiastic about it, and nobody can describe it as well as they can. An entrepreneur who's created his own product is most of the time the best salesperson for it. So you just need to translate that enthusiasm and that language from what you're hearing onto the page. I fixed this. When you work through an auto buying service, you're in control. You force the salesperson to act more like a customer service agent. And that means instead of being hassled to buy, you'll be treated with professional care and respect. And that's essentially what he was trying to say. We've come a long way with exciting unknown milestones yet to go. Okay. I don't even know. We've made great strides in recent months and look forward to more success in the future. I sort of guessed. I don't know what this writer meant. And this is a good one. You find a lot of aspects that set this place apart from its neighbors, yet surprisingly the prices are moderately expensive. I mean, so are you recommending it? Are you not recommending it? Anyway, much sets this place apart from its neighbors. Good food, excellent service, beautiful decor, yet the prices are moderate. I had no idea what the meaning was. I just picked a meaning for the sake of illustration. No idea. Turn my page here. Key number 6. Speak directly and personally to your reader. How do you do it? Okay, this is my only grammar point, but you don't really need to know anything about the grammar. I'm just going to explain. Banish passive voice from everything you write. Now, I have to say, when we first started doing boot camps, in 1999 maybe, or 2000, I would find people, there was a lot of passive voice in the review group. So we would read stuff and I would think, oh my God, this is going to be difficult. But in recent years, and I don't know if it's the caliber of the wonderful and high caliber of the people in the workshops and these conferences, but this has been less of an issue. It's something you need to be aware of, and particularly when I think you're writing about a subject you're not as familiar with or as comfortable writing about, you can fall into the habit of using passive voice. So you just need to be aware of it and stop yourself, which is easily done when you just use good verbs. If you're using good verbs, you're not using the verb to be, then you're never writing in passive voice, and it's not a problem for you. So if you come away with nothing else from this presentation, you should remember that good verbs, because it will solve not just a sense of action and enthusiasm it will not only instill a sense of action and enthusiasm in your copy, but it will also ensure that you're not writing in the passive voice. So passive voice. If you can ask by whom, and Herschel Gordon Lewis talked about this briefly, I'm just going to expand on what he said. If you can ask by whom or by what after the verb, then the verb is in passive voice. Congratulations were given to the new copywriters who produced such excellent work. Who gave those congratulations? Signs of passive voice. It's any form of to be, like am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, plus the past participle of a main verb. Okay, I realize that that's grammar, but bear with me. We'll show some examples. Was carried, were removed, must be made, has been found, will be sent. How do you get rid of passive voice? Use you. One solution is just use you. If you're using you, you're not saying you were been to the store. You're not going to do it. Just use you, right? Use you and use good verbs, and you don't have this problem. If time is available, a car should be rented and a visit to the hilltop town of Gord enjoyed. Do people talk like this? If someone says, hey, you just got back from France, what do you recommend I do? Well, if time is available, a car should be rented. No, what would you say? If you have time, rent a car and enjoy a visit to the hilltop town or enjoy a visit to Gord. It's on top of a hill. That's even better. You know, you wouldn't even say a hilltop town necessarily. You can put the doer before the verb. When deadlines are met by the copywriters, they are paid on time by the marketing managers. How would you fix that? When copywriters meet deadlines, the marketing managers pay them on time. Right? And that's just, it's a more direct way to say it. You can drop part of the verb. The school was opened 10 years ago. You could just get rid of the was. The school opened 10 years ago. That works, right? You just don't need that extra to be. Again, it goes back to the verb to be. Just get it out of your writing. You can't get it out entirely. I mean, we're speaking English here. You're going to need the verb to be occasionally, but the less you rely on it, the better your copy is going to be. You could say, a self-addressed stamped envelope must be included with your manuscript. What else? How could you fix this? Include a self-addressed stamped envelope with your manuscript. Or you could say B, a self-addressed stamped envelope must be with your manuscript. You could say that. It's not as good. Better is include a self-addressed stamped envelope. But again, you don't need both, you know, and we're in the business of getting rid of to be's and of trimming sentences. So either solution would be okay. The second one is better. And you could use another verb altogether. Our conversation will be kept confidential. How do you, instead of saying be kept, will be kept, what would you say? Or keep our conversation, or the conversation will remain confidential, and then we get rid of that to be. Right? The class participants must be separated into 3 groups. What could we say instead to get rid of that must be separated? Will separate, or you could start with a separate the class participants into 3 groups, right? Either way, you're getting rid of the be. You divide, the class participants must divide. I think I put the or divide the class participants into 3 groups, or separate the class participants into 3 groups. Can you ever say use passive voice? Sure, because sometimes you don't want to attribute an action to somebody. Mistakes were made. Don't know who did it. The car was stolen. Okay, we don't know. So there, I mean, I'm not saying you can't. This is never appropriate. Taxes are paid annually. Well, then you kind of know who's doing it. Plastic can be melted. All right. So there are times when passive voice is appropriate. In copywriting, really almost never. I mean, I would even, you know, taxes are paid annually. I would never put that in a promotional piece of copy. I would say you pay taxes annually. But there are ways that you can reduce your tax burden. Let me help you. Let me show you 6 ways you can do it before the end of this month. You know, I mean, I would use you. So even in that case, but people always, I added this slide because people always said, but wouldn't it, what if, and then they'd give this complicated, but then you could use passive voice. And all right, fine, I'll add a slide. All right, so let's look at a few of them. We can do them together even. The free book, I think I have this one up here. The free book will be sent as soon as your written request is received. Now, this is from like a reply card, you know, somebody's reply card. What would you say instead to make it more active, to put it in an active voice? Yes?
We will send you your free book as soon as you request it.
We will send you your free book as soon as you request it, or as soon as, Well, let's listen to that. A free book will be sent upon receipt of your request. Will be sent.
Yes, send your request and we'll send your book.
Send your request and we'll send your book. That's better. As soon as, I think what I put, as soon as we receive your written request, we'll send you your free book. Right, a written request and we'll drop your book in the mail. Or as soon as we receive the, anyway, the way you'd say it. So when am I going to get that? Well, as soon as you send it to me, I'm going to send it to you, essentially. The research and analysis for the report were conducted by the Economist Intelligence Unit in association with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I mean, the passive is were conducted by. How could you fix this sentence? PricewaterhouseCoopers conducted the research and analysis with the Economist Intelligence Unit or something like that. I put the two at the beginning. The two of them conducted the research for the report. The more information that is harnessed, the more control is held. The more you learn, the more you know, or the more you... Knowledge is power. That's even better. The more information you harness, the more control you hold is essentially what they're trying to say. Could be more concise than that as well. The landscape emerging as this decade unfolds is vastly different from what has been experienced before. I mean, these did come from real packages. This is not... It's a little... I mean, I don't even... Sometimes you think, well, what do they mean? This decade brings with it a vastly different landscape, is how I fixed it. I mean, things are changing, is what they're trying to say. It's a new world, right? As soon as the film is developed, even before the prints are sent to you, the photos can be accessed online right on your home computer. So can be accessed online. How can we fix this? You. I've heard it. Use you, right? Use you. Just talk to your reader. Talk to your reader. As soon as the film is developed, even before we send you the prints, you can access the photos online right on your home computer. So again, just to review quickly, good verbs and use you. I mean, if you're going to come away with nothing else, good verbs, use you, read your sentences, don't pack too much into your sentences before you send them. Key number 7. Write sentences that look back early. What do I mean? I'll explain. I'm going to explain. Why do you want to do this? Because it creates seamless transitions and it propels your reader forward. There are two the verb is the action center of your sentence. But there are two, and often is in the middle of your sentence. But you have two strong thoughts, other strong thoughts, and they are at the front of the sentence and your end of your sentence. And you want to make sure that the information at the front and the back is in the right spot. I think of this, I like to use the analogy of sort of a relay team. Your sentences are talking one to another. They're passing a baton one to another. So here I am, sentence number, how do I do this? You're left to right. You're reading left to right, so I have to go this way. Okay, to turn myself around here. I can't play that game Tetris where you have to turn the things around in your head and put it. Can't do it. All right, so you're going along with your sentence. Sentence number 1 goes along, and then, how am I going to explain this? Sentence number 1 goes along, and now it's going to turn back and hand the baton to sentence number 2. So sentence number 2 is going to come up behind and grab the baton and I'm going to hand it to sentence number 3. Now, the problem is you want the end of this sentence to make sense with the beginning of the next sentence. If this one wants to hand it to something that makes sense, but if the information that's related to the end of this sentence is way at the back of the next sentence, the reader has to hold all the information between here until there, and then say, oh, I see how it's related, right? The reader has to make these mental jumps. Now, when you have very short sentences, this might not be that big a deal. But the problem is, but it's an important thing to remember because you want to make your transition from sentence to sentence and idea to idea as smooth as possible. And these little subtle jumps that a reader has to make, information that a reader has to keep in his mind from the beginning of a sentence to the end, hurts your readability, essentially. You want to make it as easy as possible from one sentence to pass that baton, pass that piece of information to the next sentence. And you do that by making sure that you've got old information first in your sentence and new information last in your sentence. We're going to look at some examples, and this will become clear, if it's not already. Last year, the IRS issued tax reimbursements more quickly than years past. More people filed by email is the reason. I would like to fix this by doing this. Last year, the IRS issued tax reimbursements more quickly than in years past. The reason is that more people filed by email. Because the reason is talking about that first sentence. It should be up at the beginning of sentence number 2. It was referring to something in the previous sentence. Let's look at... If you're not familiar with Mr. Neff, he became one of the most successful investors in the country when he ran the Vanguard Windsor Fund for 31 years. Neff beat the overall stock S&P 500 index by a 2-to-1 margin during his tenure. During his tenure, because now we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, and when you get to the end of sentence number 2, I'm back at the beginning of the end of sentence number 1 is about whose tenure. It's just confusing. It's not confusing. It's not that your reader can't figure it out. I mean, you can figure out what they meant, but you're causing these sort of you're giving your reader incrementally reasons to slow down, essentially, to not move forward in the copy. And you always want your reader moving forward. How do you do it? You can use a repeated term, a synonym, a pronoun, a transition. A pronoun is like he, him, she, her. Implied connection. Let's look at... This is from an Oxford Club mailing. Consider these monthly information-packed briefings as your personal roadmap to a lifetime of safe and ever-expanding wealth. Each month, which repeats monthly from the first sentence, right? So it's looking back at that first sentence. You'll receive, by special express delivery, your personal private issue of the club's monthly investment bulletin. Inside what? The monthly investment bulletin. I'm looking back at my previous sentence. You'll find every new investment recommendation we have in store, fully investigated and researched by our team of investment specialists. Transition, but there's more. So now I'm not really looking back so much, but I'm making a transition to something else. At the beginning of my sentence, I'm not making that transition at the end of my sentence. I'm making it to show that I'm now breaking. Then just investment selections. You'll also read about ways. So now this is what read about new. So you'll also read. This is this new stuff that I just learned about in the previous sentence. Protect your personal privacy, save on income taxes, set up tax-saving trust, et cetera, et cetera. The first morning of the AWAI conference delivers material that serves as a foundation for the rest of the week's work. You'll have a virtual tower of practical knowledge by Friday. Again, there's nothing wrong with that sentence, really grammatically. I mean, it's an okay way to do it, but can you give me a more efficient way to do it? Yeah. By Friday first. You know, you put the by Friday first. Like by Friday, you'll have a virtual tower of practical knowledge. You know, this is a very subtle thing, and you may think, well, oh, that's obvious. But it's not necessarily obvious. And when you go back through your copy as you edit, I think you will find, and I mean, as I said, I've had people come up to me and say, that's the best tip anyone has ever given me about writing, because I couldn't figure out why it didn't read right. And it may be that you don't have to completely recast your sentence and say something entirely different. Just look at the information you have in the beginning of your sentence and the end of your sentence and see if something needs to flip. See if you need to move something around. It's not something you're going to learn about elsewhere, but I think that people make this mistake. If I asked, I think Paul Hollingshead wrote that Oxford Club piece, and if I asked him, he would have no idea what I was talking about because he just does it. He does it naturally. I mean, he'd be like, what are you talking about? Your sentences talk to each other and look at each other. But he does it. And part of the reason his copy works is because he does that. So it's something you want to pay attention to, where you're positioning information. We just did this. By Friday, you'll have a virtual tower of practical knowledge. Obeying the laws of our great nation is no guarantee you'll never need legal counsel and perhaps representation. As a typical law-abiding American, you have a 1 in 3 chance of encountering a legal problem within the next 12 months, in fact. You could just flip the in fact. The in fact is sort of hanging on the end of that sentence, but it's really expanding on what's in the first sentence. Yeah? You'll have a mountain of practical knowledge. What did I say? Where are you? Where are you? Or tower, virtual tower of practical. He's back in number 1. Obsessing about sentence number 1. You could say you'll have a mountain. You'll have you could yes. Right. You could say a tower, a mountain. Either way. But in number 2, that in fact is hanging off the end of the sentence. And people, you'll find that you write like this. I make this mistake sometimes. I'm writing and I'm just writing and getting it out, and I'll think, well, that in fact doesn't really go there, does it? The in fact is talking about the first sentence. Yeah. Yeah, you could do that. You could get rid of the in fact altogether. You know, it depends. I think that I use something. Lori, what is the term that I use in my copy? Oh, UC. Charlie Byrne at ETR always tells me that he knows if I've written a piece of copy or not because by the time you get to the fifth paragraph, somewhere in there it says UC. And I'm like, but I talk like that. I mean, I'll say, you see, the reason this works is because, I write the way I talk and I say UC, but he says, he can always tell if it's my copy or not because it says UC really, like somewhere on the first page. So what I say that because, in fact, is a good transition, and it's a spoken transition that you use. So while you could get rid of it, you might not want to. It may help you move your reader from sentence 1 to sentence 2. It may not, and you may not need it. And you may decide that I don't need it. I'm trimming, and I don't need that. In fact, it reads perfectly naturally without it. But I know I include the UCs, and no one has ever taken UC out. You know what I mean? Because it helps it sound like it's spoken. So sometimes those little connectors help, even though you don't technically need them. This phone is slim, lightweight, and provides up to 2.5 hours of talk time. You'll have the latest technology in one handy package with a Nokia 5160. Not a terrible sentence. It's really not awful. But could you flip something? Right, that's right. You could put that name of the phone first because it's talking about the phone that you mentioned in the beginning of sentence number 1. The phone is slim, lightweight, and provides up to 2.5 hours of talk time. With the Nokia 5160, you'll have the latest technology in one handy package. You can kind of see, I think this is a good example to the extent that if you look at the end of the improved sentence number 2, with the Nokia 5160, you'll have the latest technology in one handy package. What are we going to talk about in sentence 3? The package, right? You're moving forward. You're going to talk about another benefit or another feature. We launched groundbreaking media campaigns and community mobilization efforts to reduce children having children in the early 1980s. We began educating community leaders and policymakers through media campaigns and conferences about the even greater danger of children killing children in 1991. How could we make sentence 2 look back at sentence number 1? Yeah. Right, okay, it's not just me. Yeah, right, she's saying, could you switch the first sentence around, excuse me, and say, in the early 1980s, we launched a groundbreaking, you could definitely do that. Right, or we then began in 1991. The key is to move the date in the second sentence, that 1991, to the beginning of the second sentence, because it's going to echo, it's sort of a parallel, you know, it's saying, in the 80s we did this, in the 90s we did this, and if you wait all the way to the end to get to the 1991, it's good information in there, but all of a sudden I'm looking back to sentence number 1 from the end of sentence number 2, which is a pretty long sentence, and now I've sort of given my reader, now how do I get to sentence number 3? I can't get to sentence number 3 because I can't get there from here, you know? So this is why you want to make sure that essentially your second sentence is looking back at your first, your third sentence is looking back at your second. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it better to be consistent and begin each sentence with a year? I like parallel structure. It's just the way my head works. And so I think so. I would say in the early 1980s, we launched groundbreaking media campaigns. Now, having said that, it may depend. This has been taken out of context. And because the front of your sentence and the end of your sentence are two strong points in your sentence, it may be that they wanted to get into that. We launched groundbreaking. You know, I'm trying to raise money here. We launched groundbreaking media campaigns. That might be more important to them considering where it is in the package than making it parallel. And that's a judgment call on your part, but just be aware. I'm teaching this simply because I want you to be aware that these little subtle things make a big difference in the readability of your copy and in that very important motion that you want to, forward motion that you want to keep in your copy at all times. Yeah? Yes, he's saying in the first three examples, there were pretty much no harm fouls. This one could be misunderstood. It really could, because it's greater danger of killing children in 1991. That could refer to the killing children in 1991 as opposed to generally. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just because you want to keep your reader moving forward. Also, you want to make sure that you're understood properly, that you've said what you really meant to say. Anyway, I did the change that we just spoke about. I moved that 1991 up. How do you know if you've done these things? Read through your copy. I'm one of those people who edits as I go. It makes writing really painful, treacherous. On the other hand, when I'm done, I'm really done because I write a paragraph and I don't like it and I fix it and I don't like it and I fix it and I get it just the way I want it and then I go on to the next paragraph and I get to the bottom of that and I fix it and then I read it with both paragraphs. I mean, it's just torturous. I would not recommend you do it my way, though people do. A better way to write is to get it all out. Just get your information out. And I've really been trying to train myself to do that. I'm just an obsessive-compulsive editor. I mean, you cannot send me anything that doesn't. The bank sends me a note, and I'm like, God, that's a terrible letter. You know, I mean, it's bad. It's terrible. So how do you know if you're doing all this stuff in your copy? Write your copy, and then go through it each time for one of these points, essentially. If you're thinking, well, you had 7 tips, I have to go through my copy 7 times. Well, honestly, you should go through your copy 7 times, because each time, if you're going through with one specific edit in mind, you'll catch those edits, and you're likely to catch other stuff while you're at it. And by the time you've gone through your copy 7 times, it's clean. But if you're thinking, there's no way I'm going to go through that copy 7 times, fine. Make sure your verbs are good. Right? Make sure you've got as few instances of to be as possible, because your copy will just be better. Make sure it reads the way you talk. And those are sort of the 2 most important things, I think, to remember. Do you find yourself stumbling somewhere in your copy? Check that last rule we just talked about. Check the look back early. Are your sentences structured the right way? Do you have the right information in the right places? That makes a difference. Keep in mind, too, that with this is particularly important with transitioning from idea to idea, that looking back early, having your sentences start with one idea and then finish with another in this next sentence to pick up that second idea and move forward. It's important because in promotional copy, often your paragraphs are only one sentence. And so now we're talking paragraph to paragraph. You need to make sure your ideas are in the right order. So if you find yourself stumbling, do check that, because I think you'll find that that may be why. I've just got something in the wrong place. It's not that the copy isn't well written, but the order of a piece of information in a certain part just isn't quite right, and you need to tweak it or move it. And that makes a difference. How else do you know? You can come hear me tomorrow. I'm going to talk about editing. But people ask questions, well, how do I know if I have enough golden thread in my copy? How do I know if my verbs are good enough? How do I know if my close is as strong as it can be? So I'm going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about the one biggest mistake that writers make on their spec assignments, and the one most common reason that spec assignments don't get mailed. And I'm going to talk about also formatting. People will get their copy done and they're all ready, and this is their first project, and they want to get it to their new client, and they think, I hope I don't put my foot in my mouth. I want to make sure that your copy looks the way my copy looks when I send it in. You know, what do I put in my header? What do I put in my footer? What do I put in my cover note to my client? How do I format my copy? How do I put in, when you write I write a lot of financial copy. When you write financial copy, you have to have, I call it backup. You have to have backup for every claim that you make. You know, if you say there are 50 million people in the world, you have to tell your client where you got that fact. And particularly with financial copy, everything has to be documented, every single thing. You cannot make a single claim that doesn't have a link or something that shows your client, because all your copy is going to go through legal, and all our copy goes through legal, whether I'm writing for travel writers-related stuff or I'm writing for financial or a tour, anything. These days, everything goes through legal, and legal wants to know where it came from. I mean, they go to the extent of, if I pull something from a New York Times article, for example, and I'll put the link into the New York Times article, but if it's not a free access New York Times article, I get the Times, so I have access to all the articles for free. So I paste the article into another file, so if legal says, hey, I see you got this from the New York Times, but I want to see that file, I can say, well, I'll send you the article. Here's the article. And you have to be really careful. So I'm going to talk about how I format all that stuff so that my clients know what they're getting. So I just thought that would be useful. They didn't tell me to do that, but they didn't really tell me what they wanted, so I decided I would figure out what would be useful for you. Are there any questions? Any questions about good writing or anything else? Yes, in the back. I'm sorry, I'm being blinded.
So wouldn't you make Dr. Fink the main part of it if you knew that?
Her question is if there was an example we used earlier about Dr. Fink and the audio recordings, right? The language, vocabulary recordings or something like that. Wouldn't you make Dr. Fink the focus of that? You know what? Yes, you would. Maybe. Maybe. It depends on who your audience is. If you're trying to talk about how credible this product is, you might focus on Dr. Fink because he's extremely credible. But if people don't care so much about the credibility, they just want to know that it works, you might not focus on Dr. Fink. Dr. Fink, it might be incidental that he has this extra Y qualification, but more important would be the benefit to the reader. So it just might depend on who the audience is. If it was an audience of linguists, for example, and this is something new he developed, his credibility would probably be pretty critical, and you'd focus on him. But if it were just you and me, we want to learn German, I'm not sure how much we care. We want to see that it works. We might be more worried about the effects or the benefits. Any other questions? All right. Okay, now go forth. Don't give me any fodder for next year. All right. Thank you.